If anyone ever says that hopping from planet to planet on a regular basis isn't tiring, then I want whatever they're drinking in the mornings, because I was exhausted. Granted, I had to do it a lot more when I still had the team, but regardless, it was still exhausting, especially while taking care of Sara. But we got lucky. We got off Rialza just in time. DISE started to ramp up their kinetic operations against the local PMC-backed militias. After Paul Rezka's assassination, things got violent fast. Attacks on government installations became more and more frequent. Protests always turned into riots, and there was always a gunfight going on somewhere. The militias were completely forced off of Sidalara, and DISE started to investigate anyone they thought might be a sympathizer, which at that point might as well have been the entirety of Kaleidoscope. Meanwhile, as Sara and I made our approach to Azarel, all I could think about was whether or not I'd actually be able to find Stratus and get him to tell me anything he might know about Raven. I just had to hold out hope that my contact from the conglomerate had something actionable for me to work with. Capital of Sidalara.
Where'd you say?
Capital of Azarel.
Olari!
Very nice. Since you got everything right, you get to pick what movie we watch tonight. And I can tell your grouping is getting better too.
They are? I don't feel like I'm getting better. I missed half of them. You can only use one arm and you're amazing.
Well, missing isn't exactly a bad thing when you're learning. And you're paying attention to your mistakes, which means you're trying. That's more than can be said for most people. Just take it as slow as you need to. Control your breathing, and stay focused on the target. Remember, eyes lead, gun follows.
Okay, I'll try. And one more thing. I've noticed the gun you use looks really, really old. Where did you get it from?
I was wondering when you were going to ask. Good eye. This pistol has been passed down in my family for the last 260 years. Parts for it have to be made by hand since the original company that made it doesn't exist anymore.
Whoa. If it's so old, why do you still use it? Aren't there better ones to use by now?
Well, that depends on what one might say better means. For me, it feels almost like an extension of myself. It would feel wrong to use anything else.
Could I use it this time? Just once?
Of course you can. One day it'll be yours too. Who knows? You might even be better with it than I ever was.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, I know you'll be. Watching Sara shoot brought a smile to my face. It brought me back to the days of my childhood when me, Melissa, and the others were first learning to shoot with my dad and the other ghosts at the time. Except that Sara was infinitely better than I was at her age. While watching her, I almost didn't hear the alarm on my watch going off. The ship was on autopilot and was notifying me that we had entered Azarel's atmosphere. I took over the controls and started to guide the ship into the designated LZ where I would meet my contact. I set the ship down in the front yard of a modest 2-story home that was just slightly removed from a local town. It was an old ghost safe house that had been decommissioned for around 10 years. We would go there all the time as kids and celebrate birthdays, while our parents would celebrate successful operations. Though of course we didn't know that at the time. Once we touched down, I went to my quarters and started to grab my usual everyday carry. Holo tablet, tomahawk, jacket, and appendix holster in that order. Tying my hair back in its usual messy ponytail, I grabbed Sara from the range on board and loaded my pistol while we exited the ship and walked towards the house. After knocking on the door, I heard a familiar yet comforting phrase that I didn't realize how much I'd missed.
Griffins fly above,
while knights and rooks fight below.
What was that, Kara?
That was a countersign. I'll teach you some later.
Kara. Jesus. It's felt like it's been years.
Well, 7 months is close enough. It's good to see you, Victor.
You too. Come on in. So, you went from hating being called mom to adopting a kid? You go soft on me or something?
I wouldn't go labeling myself as a mom, but I do love having her around. She keeps me grounded.
Well, whatever keeps you sane, I'm not gonna judge.
Victor Reece. He was one of the newer members of the conglomerate, and he was one of our network security techs for the team. He was in his late 20s, slightly taller than me, with jet black hair. He was always a good friend to us, and wasn't like most people in the rest of the organization that just took orders and did what we said. Victor actually took the time to get to know us, and the previous ghosts, our parents. And for that, we all took notice, and he practically became family. I knew that if I was going to get any intel on Stratus, that I was in good hands with Victor.
Drink?
Yeah, Japanese sazerac. You know how I like it. And lemonade for Sara.
Good choice.
Oh, I've never had limonade before.
Wait, seriously?
We moved off of Earth before I could try.
Well, kid, you're gonna love it. I promise you that.
Absolutely.
You know, your dad kept a ridiculous amount of lemons at all the safe houses. I never got to talk to him much since he was a bit before my time, but damn did that man love his lemonade.
Yeah, he did. The mood in the room turned somber at the mention of my father. Even Sara, who I resolved never to tell about the ghost or the conglomerate for her own safety, could tell that his and the team's death were still weighing on me. I had told Sara a version of the truth shortly after we met. Telling her about the ghost and everything that comes along with being one just wasn't an option. Just her knowing, even at such a young age, would put her in Raven's crosshairs. And that is the absolute last thing I would ever want. I didn't know how I would react if something ever happened to her. She and I had grown very close in those few short months. As Victor brought our drinks over to the living room, thoughts of my father and the team took hold, and those all too familiar feelings of self-loathing and guilt started to hit hard.
I know that look. Don't go there. You know no one blames you for what happened, right?
Except I do blame myself. I failed everyone.
You can't think like that.
Can't I? I'm the first team leader in over 200 years to lose anyone in combat. Not to mention that everyone is dead from the last team except Redback and Ark. I should have never trusted Raven. What was I even thinking?
That's war, Kara. Unfortunately, shit happens. Look, Redback and Morrison know it's a long shot, but they wanted me to ask. Come back into the fold. Let us help you look for this bastard, and we'll take him out together. And the kids need the one sibling they have left.
I can't. I've got to do this as far removed from the team as possible for their safety. And I've been meaning to ask, how are Maple, Topaz, and Mako doing? Are they still
Alive? Yeah, they're fine. Those three are just constantly on ops and running the 83, so they're barely ever around.
Maple, Topaz, and Mako were the other 3 members of our team. They grew up with the same upbringing the rest of us did, and were all perfectly qualified to be ghosts. But when the time came to choose the team, it was decided that they would be better fit running Task Force 83, the unit that the ghosts headed up since the team's inception. I was just happy to hear that they were all right. Good, good. At least the kids still have them to lean on. How is my brother and the rest holding up?
Well, your little brother is excelling ridiculously fast. It's pretty much guaranteed he's going to be the 1/6 for their team. As for all of them as a whole, they're all a few shades of angry. Ark and Redback won't give them any details about what happened to their older siblings, and since some of them lost their fathers and mothers, they're still trying to process that. It's honestly lucky that Maple and the others didn't get killed too. The unit will be a mess right now if they had.
They shouldn't have to go through any of this. And because of everything going on with DISE, they're going to be pressed into operating much sooner than any other team. As I thought about what my little brother and the rest of the kids might be going through, I looked at Sara. She didn't deserve any of this either. She deserved to be able to go to school on Cidolara where she could make friends and grow up happy. But instead, she was orphaned for reasons she didn't fully understand and was bouncing all over the Milky Way with me. But she looked at me with a smile anyway, almost as if to say that everything was going to be all right. I returned her smile with a slight hug to assure her of the same thing.
Let's get this guy and get you back home where you belong. So, that hacker you told me about, Stratus. His name came up in a few underground cabals we've been contracted to keep an eye on at Temple Impact. Just so happens the cabal that he supposedly runs is in the town practically right next to us. But hey, look. I gotta ask. Are we 100% sure that this is the dude that spoofed your guy's transponder signal?
More like 99%. Tiamann said that this was the guy that Raven hired to hack Paul Reska's schedule. So it would stand to reason that if he's good enough to do an interplanetary hack into USG systems, that he's probably good enough to hack into ours.
Makes sense. This guy's to be good to do all this. Surprised he never showed up on our radar till now. Hell, under different circumstances, he might have even been brought in to work for us and rewrite that program, reshuffle the frequencies, and upgrade the encryption. But with that in mind, what have you done about your transponder?
Oh, don't worry. I disabled mine shortly after I suspected they were compromised.
Okay, good.
All right, so what are you thinking? Bribe the Cabal for his location?
Nah, that's never gonna work with these hacker types. They can always just hack into Silas Financial and make a few million stacks in an hour. No, these guys deal in information and access to information as their currency. So, you're gonna give them one of these.
Victor reached into a drawer next to the couch and pulled out what would seem like a regular SSD to most people. But those that know what to look for would know that it was a skeleton key, capable of hacking into most security systems with ease. Are we really sure we want to give some random group of hackers a skeleton key?
Want me to be honest?
Of course.
Hell no. But the way I see it, this is the best chance you've got of getting anything out of them. But hey, you're the boss. I can only really advise you. If it makes you feel any better, it's a one-time use kind of deal. Nothing anywhere near as good as the Arachnid program Redback made.
All right, that actually is reassuring. Well, I guess if that's the best chance I have of finding Stratus, then I'll take it. Where are they holed up, if you know?
They're using a local business as a front for their activities. Place is a bakery on the corner across from some market stand. Should be about 50 yards north if you go in from the southern road. You can't miss it.
Okay then. This shouldn't take me too long. I'll be back in a bit.
Are you leaving again, Kara?
Yeah, but only for an hour, max.
I don't like it when you leave. I want to come with you.
Sara.
Please.
I wish I could take you with me, but I can't. But if you're good, I've got a surprise for you when I get back. I promise I won't be long.
What's the surprise?
Well, it wouldn't be much of a surprise then now, would it? But Vic?
Yeah?
Can you please watch her for a bit?
Sure, but I didn't know working for this team included babysitting.
You can consider it an order if it helps.
It's all right. She's in good hands.
In the meantime, don't give Victor any trouble, all right? And don't forget, you're picking the movie tonight, okay?
Okay, I won't. And I'll have one picked before you get back.
As I looked down at Sara, I realized just how much of myself I saw in her. Even when I was around her age, I never wanted my father to go out on missions, especially if I didn't know when he'd be back. He hated leaving me in the care of others so often, just like I was doing with Sara. But he went anyway. He had to. And so did I. I had a mission, and it had to be done. I would have time to be with Sara when it was finished. I knelt down and gave her a hug before I walked out of the door and started to make my way into town. As I walked into town, I took in its culture and sights while I stayed alert. Like most towns in Azarel, it was more of a small settlement in the middle of a rural area populated mostly by farmers. Azarel as a whole was mostly plains, farms, and forests, with a few towns dotting the countryside. What little cities the planet had were mostly away stations and rest stops for supply ships, with the occasional apartment complex for those coming from planets that were typically more urban in nature, like Cidalara or Tia. The most popular city out of all of them being Yulari. It was a nice place to live, though, assuming you weren't already used to the fast-paced lifestyle of virtually every other colonized planet in the Milky Way. But the only difference between then and every other time I'd been was the inordinate amount of surveillance all over town. Cameras were practically on every corner, probably installed by DISE and USG to watch for any militia activity. For just about anyone else, all of that extra security would make going anywhere a massive pain. But luckily for me, I had a tech embedded into my watch that would automatically wipe any camera I showed up on. But still, approaching the bakery, I had this feeling of uneasiness pass over me. It almost felt as if I was being watched or followed. I don't know if I was being paranoid or what, but if I was being honest, I'd had the same feeling ever since I left the Black Antler compound back in January. But I had taken every precaution imaginable, including doing hundreds of SDRs by that time, and I never saw anyone. Maybe I was paranoid. But that paranoia faded as I approached the back door of the bakery and made my way inside. Walking through the kitchen, the bakers paid me no mind as I moved towards a door marked basement. If there's one thing I learned during my training over the years, it was that if you walked into a place like you belonged there, most of the people wouldn't look twice, and a bakery was no different. I could tell that this was where the hackers were set up, since it seemed to be the only door in the building with a somewhat hidden camera just above it. Walking down the stairs, I realized that this part of the building was completely soundproofed, and the further I went, the more it became less of a bakery and more of a lounge. Once I reached the bottom of the stairs, I was met by members of the hacker cabal, buried in their hollow screens, hard at work. None of them paid any mind to me except one in the back of the room. Getting closer, I noticed that he couldn't have been any older than 16. He had long curly hair, caramel-colored skin, and sunken eyes that looked strained from staring at a screen for much longer than he should. Those same eyes curiously tracked me from across the room as I approached his desk.
You're definitely new around here. What do you need?
Straight to the point. I like it. I'm looking for someone that can do an interplanetary hack, and a friend of mine tells me that your boss is the one to talk to about that. Stratus, I believe, was the name he gave me.
Sorry, lady, but I can't help you.
Can't or won't?
Can't. None of us have seen him in months. He got picked up for some hush-hush job by some military types back in August. And believe me, if he doesn't want to be found, he won't be. Unless, of course, he finds you first.
This was it. I could tell that I was on the right track. August was around the time former ghosts started getting killed, and when Raven first contacted us. My father was the first. Since he died in a car accident, I never thought much of it. No. It wasn't until the others were killed that I was able to connect the dots and come to the conclusion that we were being targeted. But of course, by the time I figured out it was Raven, it was already too late for my team, and almost all of Redback's team. What's your name, kid?
Isiah Atlas.
All right, Isiah. Well, is there any information you can give me so I can find him?
Not without payment. And if I'm being honest, I don't really think you'd have anything we'd want. But you seem pretty well off. Plenty of hackers on Azarel these days. Someone is bound to help you out eventually.
Yeah, I guess you're right. There are plenty of hackers out there that would just love to get their hands on a skeleton key for pretty much nothing in return. I'll just have to find someone else, like you said. But thanks anyway. As soon as the words skeleton key left my mouth, I could feel everyone in the room snap their heads in my direction, and the kid sitting in front of me went from curious to diverting his complete and undivided attention towards me as I feigned walking away.
Hey! Let's not be so hasty now. So where'd you manage to pick up one of those?
That's not important, but that intel is.
Alright. Like I said, none of us have seen him in months. But, as far as we can tell, he never left Azarel.
How can you tell?
We log all of our activity in a group here, and his indicates that he never left the planet, but was still active.
Okay. Do you know of any safe houses he might use, or any other places he likes to hang out?
Yeah, but it's a long list. You might be looking for a while.
I've got time.
Alright then. Transferring them to your holo now.
As the location of every safe house and known hangout hit my holo tablet, I realized just how massive the list was. I was only expecting 3 or 4 places to check, but this list was numbering close to 100 scattered all across the planet. It would take months to check them all. And with talks of a blockade being formed around Azarel, I didn't know how long it would take for me to check all of them before DISE decided to break it and make their way planetside.
So, about that skeleton key.
Yeah, a deal's a deal. But just know, this is a one-time use, so if you guys are going to use it wisely. Don't just hack into some Akari Zayubatsu account for a payday.
Yeah, right. There aren't enough skeleton keys in the Milky Way that would get any of us to mess with the Akari Zaibatsu. But are you sure you want to spend all your time looking for him? We've got a few people here that could try an interplanetary hack if you really need one.
No, it's fine. I'm in no rush and my friend recommends him, so I really don't mind.
Alright then, whatever you say. You might be out there looking for a long time though, but if you ever need anything else, just let me know. Especially if you got any more skeleton keys laying around.
Yeah, sure. I'll let you know. As I said goodbye to Isiah, I started to piece together routes to the different safe houses in my head. While it would definitely take a while to check all of them, I could still make the overall search just a little shorter. Walking back up the stairs towards the bakery, I made my way to the front of the shop so that I could buy Sara the surprise I'd promised. After leaving the bakery, I began to feel like I was being watched all over again. I started to run a surveillance detection route just in case. After walking through the town more than 5 times, I was confident that I had either shaken whatever tail I'd picked up, or that I was never even being followed in the first place. As I approached the safe house, Sara ran outside to give me a hug before I could even open the door. Picking her up and carrying her back inside, I found Victor waiting to find out what happened with the hackers.
So, how'd it go?
Well, I've got my work cut out for me. He wasn't there, but I've got locations of his safe houses and hangouts.
So why do you sound so annoyed about it?
Because there are almost 100 locations on the list, all across Azarel.
Jesus. You want some help checking them?
No, I should be fine. Besides, you'd better get back to Temple Impact before they start wondering where you are.
Yeah, good point. Still, I hate to leave you with all of that. Can't do everything alone, Snow.
Don't get me wrong. I'd take you up on that if Kaleidoscope wasn't on the brink of war right now. We'll need eyes everywhere soon enough.
Yeah, you got that right. Riaza's gone from bad to worse. After Reska got iced, the militias and PMCs started hitting DISE bases. And I've even been hearing the words prison camps start getting thrown around by higher-ups in USG. Hard to believe this shit all started because of some manufacturing sanctions and extra taxes.
Oh, I know. Also doesn't help matters any that they just decided to install Sawyer as governor without an election. That was never going to end well. But if you find anything else actionable I can use, let me know, all right?
Of course. Oh, by the way, you ever have any luck cracking that data core you told me about from the Black Antler guys a few months back?
Nope. Whoever encrypted it did a damn good job. Even I'm not that good.
Don't sell yourself short, Kara. But who knows? Maybe it'll resolve itself.
Yeah, like I'd ever get that lucky. But hey, one more thing.
What's up?
I need you to keep Sara a secret from everyone else. Traveling with me is dangerous enough as it is, and the less people that know about her, the better. Too many people already know she's with me.
Yeah, I understand. They won't hear a peep from me about her. But hey, they'll find out eventually. You know they will.
By the time they do, she'll already be able to protect herself.
I hope so. But it was good seeing you again, Kara. Hopefully we can get this wrapped up soon. We need our 1-6 back in the fold.
It was good seeing you too, Vic. Be careful out there.
Always.
Giving Victor a half handshake, half hug, he left the safe house and made his way into town where he would have his own ship waiting for him. As I turned to Sara, I could easily tell that she was anxious to figure out what her surprise was, since she was slowly inching her way toward the bag from the bakery as if I wouldn't notice. Sara?
I didn't look yet.
Yet.
Can you at least tell me what it is? Please?
All right. Remember how you told me that Medivic was your favorite snack?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what I got from the bakery. I figured you could use a taste of home.
Really? Thank you, Kara!
Wait. Slow down, little wolf. Before we open that, did you figure out what we're watching tonight?
I was thinking Hero's Trip to Mars?
Oh, but we watched that last time.
Please! The talking cat is funny.
He is pretty funny, isn't he? All right, fine. We'll watch it again. But I'm picking the next one. As Sarah and I sat down to watch our movie and eat our cake, my thoughts started to drift towards finding Stratus and hopefully Raven. I was hopeful that I'd finally be able to put an end to everything and start to give Sarah the life that she deserved. The movie ended. Sarah fell asleep in my arms, and I drifted off soon after. That was probably the best sleep I'd gotten in months. But unfortunately, it would be the last bit of peaceful rest I would have for a long time. Over the next few months, the fighting between DISE and the militias would get even worse and even bloodier than it already was. A blockade formed by the militias would be placed around Azarel, and militia sympathizers would start to be killed or forced into prison camps. After November, the Milky Way would never be the same again. And on top of everything, I would check all of the locations on the list and never find a single sign of Stratus at any of them. I was practically right back where I started, and I didn't have a single clue what to do about it.